Okay, so here we are today for our Build a Better Book webinar summer series. Today we are talking to April Chamberlain, who is the Technology and Library Coordinator at Tazewell City Schools in Alabama. And we'll be talking about virtual Build a Better Book, online and blended learning. So April's going to have some great tips for everyone to push our programs forward in these times when we are all learning more online than usual. So if you're ready, go ahead, April. Thank you.
All right, so thank you definitely for coming. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have lots of pictures and lots of examples I want to share with you. And I will share this link at the end because if you're like me, you'll get on and you'll start clicking away and go down a rabbit hole of some other things. And so I want to kind of keep us focused for this 1 hour. And then you'll have everything you need and you'll have my email address. So if you're like, oh, I couldn't get to that, because some of the things that I do have linked are private because they have student information on it. And so I can definitely work with you to get those copies and go. So let me share my screen. All right, so if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up in the chat if you see a virtual board that says Virtual Build a Better Book Program. So just give me a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Good deal, thank you, thank you. All right. So my name is April Chamberlain, like Judy said, and I am in a public K-12 school district. This is my email address, and I'm very active on Twitter. So if you are on Twitter, I would love to follow you and learn from you. There's quite a few in this group that I do follow, and that definitely inspires me and pushes me to see how I can replicate and do. And they're great connectors for others. All right, so the way our program, Rachel Brockman and I, she is the middle school librarian in my school district. We discovered Build a Better Book when we were searching and had been asked, what could a 3D printer do for our visually impaired students? And at that point, I had no clue. So that began my research to try to figure it out. And in one of those blogs, they mentioned the Build a Better Book program. And so researched it, we were selected, so 2 Februaries ago, we got to travel and make those connections. So our plan when we came back was to do 2 different things. So Rachel works at middle school, so she was able to collaboratively, we created a year-long course for 7th and 8th graders, which was fabulous. But I knew that would not be able to happen in in an elementary setting. And I wanted the students to have multiple ways to learn about this. So we do enrichment classes. We call it actually just Enrich, and it stands for Engage, Reinforce, Inspire, and Challenge. And this is in all of our elementary schools. Our think of it like clubs, but it's during school. So it's for 35 minutes. At this particular school, it was from 2:10 to 2:45. I had the students 1 day a week. And so mine was on Wednesdays. And so all the students would come, and it lasted for 12 weeks originally. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that kind of changed a little bit later on. So they came to me, like I said, 35 minutes every Wednesday. Now, when we put out these, we do a Google form that we put out to every student. This is 3rd through 5th grade at this school. We have other opportunities for the littles, but every 3rd through 5th grader could choose their Enrich course or class. And so I put mine together, and it was very simple. And I just said, build a better game. How can we create games that visually impaired students can play? We do have 15 visually impaired students in our school district, and a lot of them are at the elementary school right this moment. And so I knew I would have a handful, and I was just hoping I had 20, just 20. I thought that would make a great class. It would be full. To my surprise, over 80 students registered for my class. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And I really would love to have 80, but I could only dedicate 1 day to it. So we did talk, and I thought, well, maybe I could do 40, because I've been in the classroom for a while, and I've got some strategies that I might could do, or to use to help. So I decided on 40, that's where we could go, but I was extremely nervous, so nervous. Just because of that many kids at the last part of the school day. So I knew I had to find resources and strategies that would help me meet the needs of all the students, and so that everybody could equally participate. Nobody was kind of left aside or hanging on. So I'm going to kind of take you through the tools and the resources I use throughout this year that I will be able to do, if not exactly the same, in a modified way, but it's all online. So I could use it when we're in a blended situation. I'll definitely use it when we're in a face-to-face. And then if we have to go online, there are other things we can use. So let me tell you, these are a little few of my kids, and we're going to get to know them a little bit better. But it was at Payne Elementary School in our school district. So these are the 5 main tools that I used: Google Classroom, Hyperdocs, Screencastify, Flipgrid, and Tinker. So give me a +1 if you have ever used Google Classroom in chat. If you would just do +1 if you have used Google Classroom, +0 if you have never used Google Classroom. And some of you may have not used Google Classroom because you have to be a school district to use it. So I understand if you're a public library, that might not be a choice. All right, what about Hyperdocs? +1, I have used them, I know what they are. 0, I'm new to Hyperdocs, not sure what you're talking about. All right, when we jump into that section, Ashley and John, I'd love for you to kind of share your ideas too, or how you might have used them. So Hyperdocs is new. Hyperdocs was really one of the key things that saved my ability to work with all students. That was, if I had to say only one of these I could use next year, it would be Hyperdocs. So glad about that. Okay, what about Screencastify, or another way for you to record video for students to be able to see? Great, great, great. So far it looks like everybody's got some way to make videos. Good deal. If not Screencastify, there's tons of other ways. Screencastify is free and it automatically downloads to Google Drive, which makes it so much easier and gives you a link that's public. All right, so what about Flipgrid? So +1 for Flipgrid, 0 for Flipgrid. Loving seeing the ones, So for those that don't, you're going to get introduced to that because it is a phenomenal way to have every student give their voice or reply. And then lastly, Tinkercad. So Tinkercad +1 or +0. Okay, so Tinkercad, I know I knew a little bit about it, but I really learned more about it when I was up with the program with Kat. So she really kind of pushed me to go, now you need to learn more. And that has had great dividends for us. All right, so let's kind of get started. So Google Classroom, so I started off with my Build a Better Game Google Classroom, and I'll take you there. And so this was really the platform in which all of the materials lived. And it took maybe 1 to 2 sessions with the students for them to understand they don't come in and just wait for me to tell them what to do or to get the materials. So at first they were like, what do I do? So train them to, as soon as you come in or as soon as you join our group, log in to Build a Better Game, because that is where I'm going to post the different assignments and everything that they would need to do. So in Google Classroom, for those that are new, you have a stream, and this is a lot like a social media. So if I go down all the way to the bottom, you're going to see where we started. So this was the very first post of the first day together, and it was, who are you? So you can post materials in the stream, or you can organize it highly in the classroom. Classroom didn't come for us until midway through this, so that's why you'll see some in stream and some in classroom. But this was the mechanism where I stored everything that they would need. And that was really critical because I couldn't answer every question every kid had, otherwise nobody would get what they would needed. So Google Classroom was the mechanism to store. So that's very important, especially, and no matter if you are face-to-face or in a remote setting or distance learning. We use a lot of Google tools. And I was very conscious about making sure that every student felt like they were a part of the group and not just, if I don't say anything, nobody will ask me to do anything. So I introduced a lot of collaborative things. And so that very first thing is I wanted to build community with my students. And so I created a collaborative Google slide, so I'll take you there. And so in this, every student, I made a template. And so this was the template I made. And since we were Build a Better Game, does anybody know what the border, what game I based that on? You can throw that in chat. So what border did I base this game on? or what game did I base the border on? Sorry. Yes, Monopoly, Monopoly. And so created this, I drew it, drew it myself with the different lines, the boxes, color coded it. I liked it. So customized it with our, with the Build a Better Book logo. And so I had this template, and this was the first thing they did. I had pre-created mine so that they had a model. So I wanted them to put their picture in. I had questions in and asking them, and we played Tactile Pictionary. And so this was their reflecting point. So after playing Tactile Pictionary, what are some of the things you have learned, questions you have about, etc. So this is where they were going to add in. So everything else is locked down. If you notice, I can't move all this stuff in the back. And the way I did that is I made one slide, saved it as a JPEG, and then I added it to the master slide. If you've never played in the master slide, that's what helps get things locked down so kids don't move them all over the world. And so you can easily Google that, or you can go to slides and edit master, and that's where you can put in the picture. So you see, I put in these, and I even put in another one where I locked down these words because I didn't want them to move my boxes around. So that was really important that I had a way to do, because sometimes you create things and kids shift stuff all over the place, and then they spend more time getting it back. So that's just a little tip to help you on there. So I modeled, and then I asked them, what is something that why did you join this group? And so I modeled it. I did have another teacher at the school that kind of came in and was another set of hands. So Ms. Brandon and I both modeled it. And then every student had a slide, and I pre-put in their names, because if you've ever asked somebody to collaborate on a shared document, they're all writing over top of everybody. So I went ahead and pre-put in their names, and that just helped me. If you don't know your students' names, you could number the slides, and not just number on the left, but actually in the slide, say this is slide number 1, and then go down and say, you are number 1, you are number 2. And I just tell you, doing those things saves your life when you've got a short amount of time. So, and a lot of the kids didn't know how to take a picture with their Chromebook. So, you know, I let them discover it, because we're all about discovery here. So this is Jillian's, and she took her picture. And so she just kind of talks about, she realized that it's harder than she thought being blind, just not knowing where you're going. If you were in something out in the desert, how would you know, without knowing where's food is, what are you gonna do? So by playing the Tactile Pictionary, and then giving them time to reflect on it, it was really amazing what they what conclusions they were coming to. And that's what I wanted to do, is build in that empathy activity. So I love that I was able to take that from the Build a Better Book program and replicate it here, and they got, as much out of it as more. And then, why did you choose it? She said, I honestly love to build and create it. It kind of refers to animating, which is her dream. So every student has had a slide, they had time given to them to share about themselves. And this helped me a lot too, because I am horrible with names. And so now I can harvest the picture and their name, and I've got kind of a little cheat sheet where I've got every kid's picture with their name on it on one page. So that helped me real quick, because it's important that I call them by name when I work with them. The second part, in this first 35 minutes, we played Pictionary and did this slide together. I wanted them to leave comments for one another, because again, that's how we build that two-way communication. So if you've never used comments in anything shared with Google, it's this little button up here where you can add a comment. So you'll see, I asked them to go and find at least 2 other people in the group that they didn't already know, and leave a comment for them, something about their slide. So you'll see Caroline left a comment, and I personally went back and left comments on all of them too. So you'll see some of them just said, hey, I think the same way you do, or same, I really want to help. I like how you want to help with others with disabilities. And so you'll see that, and that was just another way for me to build community in a short amount of time. And they can always come back to this. So that was something that, that I felt was really important and could use. I could do this same thing in a remote setting. And so when I give you these slides, I did put a link down here to a template. If you wanted to copy this one exactly, you're welcome to do that. But you can also tweak your own. But this activity where everybody got to know each other, I think was very important. So within the 15 minutes that it took to do this, every kid was able to share something about them and why they did. And to me, that was so important. We also used collaborative slides when they were picking and choosing. So instead of me taking time, what did you choose? John, do you want to be in this game or this game? I had this slide that was, I had the games that they were going to be able to choose from, and these were all blank. We broke ourselves into, you were either a tactile designer or a Braille writer. And so they had already pre-joined a group, and then they came and filled this out for them. And so this is, again, something that can totally be done in that remote setting. So within less than 5 minutes, I knew where everybody was going to be and what they were going to work on. And I can always come back to this. Oops. So I just clicked on it. We're going to move on to the next slide. Remember, I was telling you at the beginning that Hyperdocs really, really was the thing that helped me the most. And I had not really used Hyperdocs before this. I had my book for the Hyperdoc handbook. I had seen people posting about it. And I thought, really, what really is the difference between just giving links to kids than a Hyperdoc? And truly, a Hyperdoc is designed with purpose. And so you have, at minimum, 3 sections. You have, the first one is the Explore section. And that's where you're giving multiple ways for the students to explore or to hook them. Actually, there's an Engage one that's before, so I didn't do that on this one, sorry. But with the Explore, I didn't say, I'm going to play this video and we're all going to watch the exact same video. You give them choice, and that's really big for students, making sure they have student choice. And you want to use different things. I make sure that I have a video. I try to make sure that I have something in print, because not everybody is drawn to a certain type of material. And so you want to have multiple ways for the students to learn. And so you give them time to explore, but you clearly define what is the task. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? So they have an Explore section, an Explain, and Apply. So I'm going to click on this. So this was for my Braille writer group when we decided to divide and conquer. So I'm going to click on this one to show you a little bit in depth onto that. And so with this one, I had a video, and I was really wanting to make sure I found resources that was not somebody who was sighted showing how to use a stylus. So I purposefully chose this video, and it is of a visually impaired student, and they are walking us through. I'm not going to play it for us, but they're walking us through. And I didn't want it to have a Perkins typewriter, because I knew my students wouldn't have access to that. We had purchased multiple slates, and then some of these big slates here. And so I wanted to find
It appears we may have lost April briefly. We'll try to bring her back online.
Okay, I'm back online. Sorry, I was like talking and nobody was moving. So it's me. I'm sorry. But it's just important to have multiple ways to do. But by this time, the students were already very familiar with coming into Google Classroom and pulling up their assignments. So as you see, by having a Hyperdoc with everything that they need here to get started and to progress through their learning that day, they didn't have to stop and wait on me to give them directions. And sometimes kids need directions multiple times. Well, this answered that. The directions were there. It took me a little while to build it, but once I had it, now I've got it for the next time I cycle a group through. And so with our Explain, this is where I just kind of was talking about what are we going to do? And then with the Apply, again, and again, visual pictures. I wanted to make part of a Hyperdoc is you make it visually appealing. So instead of saying, hey, here's everything you need and just have a massive list, I tried to make sure I had an image to remind them, this is what I'm talking about. These are the things you need. And then I did a lot of, I didn't want them to write on their own paper necessarily, because then I couldn't see what they were working on. And I felt as a leader of the group, I needed to be able to see at what stage and what progression the students were. So we did everything through Google Docs and other things. So you'll see in the Apply, they had to generate a list of words that was going to need to be brailled. And so I pre-created a document for them, and I hyperlinked it here. And I think this group decided they wanted something different. So I don't know that there's anything in this one necessarily. Oh, they did. So I pre-created this document, and then all I had was this table: what words, phrase, who's going to braille it, and then check off when it's attached to the game. So they were like, yeah, we're just going to do all of these, and Addie's going to take care of 50, and I'm going to do the next 50 on that. But I pre-created those because it saves time when they're with me versus saying, okay, get a sheet of paper out, make a table, make it. I had that there. And all of the students had Chromebooks. And so, but I could do this with just one Chromebook. I could assign in my group one person that is the recorder for that day, so that we don't, so if you didn't have a device for every student, you still could do that. So that is an example of the Braille one. And for the tactile, it was very similar. I'm just going to pull this up so you can see. So with tactile, that's where they were creating. So they had, I wanted them to explore what is a 3D pen and what might it look like. And so I found a video that showed them the different buttons, and then just some other things. We did do some Tinkercad, because some of our tactile, they were like, the 3D printer won't do it for me. I need something different. And so this is where I was starting to be able to differentiate. Okay, here's Tinkercad. So you can choose either to do a pen or a Tinkercad. And at first, everybody said, oh, I love the pen. I think because they just saw them and thought they were so cool. But I did have 3 groups that were like, okay, I need to get into Tinkercad. But I had all of their resources and reminding them, here's what you need when you go up and get it. Here's what you need from the material station. And I had all the materials on this big table that we had. Thankfully, because I had such a large group, they let me have the old library. So it was, we could spread out heavily. And that's going to be nice when we come face to face. We will start again school August 12th. So it'll probably be maybe a month before we start doing enrichment classes, but I can still do it because I can socially distance my groups and my kids using that big space. I will have to think differently about the materials, but we can still replicate and do that. So any questions? I know, I feel like I'm speed talking to you guys. So if I need to slow down, please tell me. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. But that is, the Hyperdocs was really, really beneficial. And I've continued to use those in all different courses, not only with students, but with teachers when I'm training them and doing other things. I've just really seen the value of a Hyperdoc there. So these are just some of the materials, and I know you probably have those too with the 3D pens. We did find that a fishing tackle box was the great store for all of our plastic. So again, thinking about next year, they may have to do a reservation through a Google form. I need these materials, and I will pre-package them in Ziploc bags, and then they will be at their tables when they come in. So just have to think a little differently. We used a lot of different tactile touch. The guys found that glue is super sticky and it gets everywhere. And so we had a lot of exploring with that. These were the slates that we worked with. So you've got some collaboration going on with these 2 students. They were working on Candyland. He was so super proud of himself. This is the 3rd picture, because the first time he did it, he made a mistake. It's like, oh man. And you know, we cheer each other on. The second time he did it on the back side of the tape. So he's like, oh man, really? And so he was super proud, and I promised him I would show him anytime I talk about it. I said, I will show your picture and let them know. Because one of the things that I was so super surprised about with having 40 kids, I thought I'm going to get some kids in there that are like, you know, this really wasn't what I wanted, and could cause more of a distraction. In the 12 weeks I was with them to start with, the only distraction we had is one student put his empty Uno box on his pencil and flung it around on his pencil. That is the only time I had to say to anybody, hey, let's get back to work. They were so, once they realized what value this had through doing the Pictionary and really talking about some of their friends who are currently in their classroom and realizing, hey, they really can't play Candyland with me. They can't just pick up a deck of cards. They were all for it. They were even saying, can we do this? Can we meet you for lunch? Can we meet after school? I was like, I wish I could, but I have another job too. But they were so hooked and so passionate about it that it was just amazing. So the next tool I wanted to show you is Screencastify, and I'm so glad that most of you, or if not all, had some way to do it. Because that was my thing too. I had 8 different groups, and some of them were progressing well. Some of them were kind of slowing up or needed some reminders. And so these are 2 posts that I made. So this one, oh, let me go back. I thought I'd linked to it. I must not have. So this one was my group. And within Google Classroom, you can send things to the whole class. I can assign a Hyperdoc or an assignment to the whole class or just an announcement. But you could also send through Google Classroom to just individual groups. So you see there's only 4 students that this post went to. It's because that was my group for Uno. So this one only went to those students. No one else in my class saw it. So they were just kind of starting to get a little off track and weren't doing the colors on the card. And so I just made a quick video reminding them of here's what the card should look like. And I know Target sells Braille cards. And I think I had a student go every week to look and see, and our Target never sold them. And so they were so disappointed in Target and Trustful. But they were like, we got this, we can do it. So super proud of them. Same way for my Connect 4 group. And you see it's 2 students. So this is the 2 tactile designers in that group. After they tried doing the 3D pen and realized that wasn't going to work well for the 2 different pieces, he said, okay, I will do Tinkercad. I think that's what I need. And so I made him a quick video about just an introduction to Tinkercad and how you can pull the shapes over to do that. And so having that ability to make quick videos and put them in these it was great because the students were able to watch them and rewatch them. And what's great about having all this content in an online platform is they can access it 24/7. So some of my students, didn't access it at home, but others would see me in the hallway, or as soon as they were coming into our next session together, they're like, hey, I watched your video and I left you a comment. Did you see it? Because you didn't comment back on me. So, so it's good that it's there for whenever they need it. So this is the Connect 4. So just kind of, you guys all had Schoology, so I'm not gonna, not Schoology, sorry, Screencastify. So I'm not gonna show you, but it does easily, save your whole screen, and it puts it in Google, a Google folder for you, and gives you the share permission. So I was able to add that back. So I'm not going to play this one for you since you already have some knowledge of that. So this is my 2 tactile designers that for Quirkle, and that was a game I had never heard of, Quirkle. And so it's I just went into Target and found 8 games. I actually found 12. And 2 of them didn't get picked, or 4 of them didn't get picked. But this group chose Quirkle. And if you've never seen Quirkle before, it is blocks, and there's a set that have they're in different colors. So you've got like red, blue, orange, green, yellow, and I think purple. And then each color there's 6 shapes. And so it's kind of like dominoes, but you line them up by color and by shape. And so it really was a challenge. They first started off with, we're just going to cut tactile or paper and put on top. Well, that didn't work very well. So they jumped into the whole Tinkercad, and they were extremely nervous. The little guy on the right was like, I don't think I can do this. I really don't think I can do it. I'm like, yes, you can. You've got this. I got a video for you. My first video was kind of short. He said, Chamberlain, I didn't learn it in that first video. Can you do another a little bit longer? I was like, okay. So I did a 20-minute video, and afterwards he told me that was just right. So he said, thanks. But they spent a lot of time at school and at home. And this is when we weren't in a remote setting at this point, but doing this made me see how I could do it coming up if kids are part of this, but I don't see them face to face. So they designed their prototype, which I printed and brought to them. So they designed it. This is my office where I pulled it up and synced it over for my Dremel. I printed it at my office. And what I've done over this time too is with Rachel's class, they designed some tactile pieces for their project. So the kids sent it to me. I brought a 3D printer home. I put my an iPad in front of it and did a time-lapse video because I wanted the students to see what the process of printing was. So I did a time-lapse video of their print. I wish I'd done it for these guys because I know they would have appreciated it. So I did print it, and then I took pictures, sent them videos and all. But these guys, I was able to bring back that prototype because I would love for them to see me start the 3D print, but you know how long sometimes a 3D print can take. It can be forever. So that's why I printed them back in my office. But they were super excited and proud of their work when they got to see and touch theirs. And they needed to go back and redesign. So this is just a comment that Hayden left for me. He's like, hey, we're ready to reprint. And he left me there two files. So we were not together when he emailed me this, and he did this through Google Classroom. So that's how we can still continue to share our work back and forth using Google Classroom. This is the principal for the school. She came in just to check out what we were doing. And these guys were like, well, let me tell you about what we're doing. She's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And he said, how about I teach you Tinkercad? So this is them sitting down teaching the principal how to use Tinkercad. I don't know if I'm frozen again. Okay, I was frozen. All right. But they were so excited about being able to teach that principal and go from there. And this really lit up the principal to say, this was the first time she had come in, and we had been in for about 8 weeks. And she was like, I did not realize, she went to all the different groups, and this was her last group. She said, I did not realize how much of an impact this will have on our students, not just those creating, but those that will receive it. She's like, we've got to do this all the time. This is what we should be doing. So that really hooked her. This is another example of how Tinkercad was valuable for us. He was the Connect 4. So he printed a prototype, and somehow in the game we've lost a lot of pieces. So even the little holder, so my hand was holder there. So he thought these would be great. And so he put on his blindfold and was testing them out and felt this one was okay and the other not. So he went back to the drawing board on that. He was out sick for quite a while, and so he was doing some of the designing and trying and going back and forth. So it brought in a lot of math and a lot of measurement. And why did it work? Why did it not? Different things like that. So Tinkercad was really a great tool. And if you've not used Tinkercad, it is fully online. And that's where the kids go to design and share. So that is something that can completely be done in a remote setting. The other another tool is Flipgrid. So Flipgrid is a way for all students to give a video feedback. So I'm going to click on, let's go to the next one, please. So did I click there? Let me see where I did. There we go. So this is just an example. I had them create 2 Flipgrids because I wanted to stop at the midway point and give them a chance to reflect and to record a video about who they are, what their group's doing, and why. And so this is kind of from the background showing you, what we were doing. So here is the one where I asked them just to introduce their game and what specifically, what your team. So these are all my different teams that they were doing. And I'm pretty sure I've got it linked. And it's password protected, so you can do that easily. Oh, I hope I remember. Oh no. Dadgummit. That's the problem with doing passwords. Sometimes we forget.
It's just very high security.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me just.
Your kids will be totally safe.
Yes. Let me log in as an educator, and I can pull it up. I practiced it this morning, but you know, when you have 50 gazillion passwords, you forget. So this is, Flipgrid is free. All of these tools that I'm showing you are completely free. So with Flipgrid, the way it works is you create a grid, and think of that like your class. And then in each grid, you can have topics, and each individual topic is what kids are responding to. So here's my grid, build a better game. And then I had 2 topics. I wanted a team reflection and then independent reflection. It shows you how many videos are here. So I'm just going to play you one. So with a team reflection. So I was able to go in and type all this. What's great is, let's see if I can. Never mind. The way that students see it is a lot like what I had for you here. They see individual pictures of the kids. We're in the educator version, so that's why we're seeing it like this. But we'll just kind of go to Zach.
What I learned in Build Better is that it's a lot harder drawing on the stylus than drawing on anything else that you can draw on. If you had like a brailler, it would be be a lot easier than Brailling it on this because you had to turn the stylus backwards to Braille it. And what I learned is these, if you're like writing on a card or something, you had to
So I'm gonna pause that there. His sister is actually visually impaired, so he had a little more knowledge than the others. So that's why he's like, if I could just do it on a Brailler, I'd be fine. So that was the greatest kind of angst when they were like, oh, I forgot to Braille it backwards and, you know, all that. So, but, you know, they learned a lot on it. As a teacher, then I can come in and give him feedback individually, but all the others can give him video feedback too. So, what is this?
right.
So that was where every kid can.
This you had to
I'm not sure where.
make
It is.
it where
There we go. But I also I wanted each person individually to share too. So this is a teacher I'm showing it to when we're demoing. But each of the students, so I think I had 23. Not everybody wanted to be on camera, and that's okay. That's where you kind of have to have that flexibility. If you don't want to be on camera, it's totally okay. I think you can put an avatar up there now. I'm not 100% positive on that. But they were each able to share their thoughts and all. And so it was a great way for me to reflect back on them and give them some feedback. And with it, we did this, both of these videos, these Flipgrids, within 135-minute sections class. So everybody was able to share. You know, a lot of times traditionally, if you're in a classroom and you want everybody we're going to talk about what did you learn, you might only have time for 5 kids to share what they learned. But in 15 minutes, all 23 and all teams were able to share. So that's a value of using a resource like Flipgrid. Every kid's voice is heard in a very short amount of time. And they do have the ability to go and watch everybody else's video and give them a thumbs up. They can even leave them a video response saying, I really like how you did this, tell me more. So again, that's another one of those building community too activities. But I used it more so to make sure I could hear from every student. I didn't want anyone to feel like they weren't being heard. Let's see. I forgot to take that out, sorry, extra one. So March happened for us. I'm not sure when shutdown happened for you guys, but March 14th was when it happened. We were thinking that we were gonna have a little bit more time, but Saturday rolled around and it was like, you're done. Well, my kids were already kind of hearing that we might, you know, have some problems. And they were like, can you just bag up my stuff so I can take it home? Well, I didn't have a slate for all of my Braille writers, so I said no. I was a little hesitant sending home the stylus on the bus too. My kids would be good. They were not going to hurt one another, but you know, those are always concerns when you send stuff home that can poke somebody. But so I was trying to think, how could we continue in a totally remote without them having resources, since we were such heavy resource. But really the only ones that could move forward were those that were using Tinkercad, because it was a totally online component. But now that I'm thinking for next year, so we will start August 12th. And I've already been contacted by the principal at that school saying we're still doing Enrich. So you figure it out, because we're going to offer this again. So I'm looking at how might we continue to work in a face-to-face setting, since we do have kids that want to come back. And then how can we work in a remote setting? So just like any of you, you're going to have those face masks. We have shields. If you notice, all the tables were, you know, they weren't individual students. So we will have plexiglass that kind of divides the tables. And so, you know, 4 or 6 could sit at those spaces. We will have to be very careful of materials. And like what I was talking about earlier, they're not going to be able to just go up and get any materials. We're going to have a Google form that say, I'm requesting these materials and a pre-packaged. So they'll need to do that, be thinking about that, what they will need for their next class, so that I can have those sanitized and prepped and ready for that. But also, I know we'll have a good bit of kids online, and we want to offer them enrichment opportunities too. So I was thinking, how could I take what I did? And even though I love Hyperdocs, I'm thinking, how could I make it a little bit more, more interesting? So, and that was just talking about my materials. One other thing too, we spent at least one 35-minute session of brainstorming, really analyzing the games, what parts, what pieces. I can do this easily using Google Drawings. Is where we can make our own graphic organizers that kind of have all this. So everything that we did face to face, other than touching the, the 3D pens and things like that, we can replicate using graphic organizers in an online capacity. I could use Padlet. There's so many tools that you can use for brainstorming and other things. So this is something that I was looking at. I went to a session on how to design like choose your own adventure things. And so I thought, I wonder if I could recreate the Hyperdocs in a form of choose your own adventure where they kind of go through it. So I started it off with, hey, here's your challenge. Your friends are so excited. Everybody's going to get to hang out at your house and play games. And you're looking at the games, and then you realize your friend who's blind won't be able to participate. So what do? That's those old choose your own adventure books. There's a challenge and you got to make a decision. And so I kind of started just recreating it. This is what you're going to navigate through these slides. So here's where we start. You can either be a Braille writer or tactile. So this is just in the early design stage for me. I could still do it in Hyperdocs, or I could do it in this. There's all sorts of ways that I can recreate this experience. And so it just kind of takes you through, and I like using Google Slides versus Google Docs sometimes, because you can easily embed video. You can't do that, you can do it in Google Docs, but you got to hack the doc to do it. So it's just so much easier to do it in slides. And so you're able to do that. And so there's lots of different ways. I know, has anybody caught the Bitmoji interactive classroom bug? Tell me in chat. Are you a Bitmoji person? All right, Helen is. Let me see any of my other Bitmoji friends. Only one so far? Okay, so Susan, there we go. All right, Kat, nope, not yet. All right, so I'm going to navigate to one. It's just a summer one. Let me get to it. Only dipping a toe in, actually. Okay, yeah, it is a rushing river. There's so much going on. So this is my school district. Last year, when we shifted to remote, we called it Classroom to Cloud and built everything in Google Sites. But so this is our summer. So this is just a one Google slide. And actually, I can pop it out. Let's just pop it out. So a Bitmoji classroom is really or not necessarily a Bitmoji classroom. It really truly is an interactive classroom is what I would say it is. And so it's your classroom or your ideal classroom, and everything in here is clickable. So it's highly visually appealing. So kids can navigate. They're not told you've got to do this thing first, this thing next, other. It is choice when you go. Visually appealing, things like that. So everything in here is clickable. So like if we click on this little cell phone down here, it takes me to a Google form asking you, how are you doing? Do you need me? This goes to the counselors. If they click here, it automatically launches their email program, and it already populates who is it going to. This one is going to take them kind of like a hidden Mickey. I wanted to see if they would figure it out. It takes them to web cameras so that they can watch all of these animals from around the world kind of stuff. Their summer reading books are here. This takes them to our school website because we are the Huskies. So this takes them to different things. So as I was putting together this presentation and knowing that I like visual things and thinking, could I recreate my Build-A-Better game classroom into a interactive space? And I thought, yes, I can. So I can, and you can have multiple slides. You can start with one and then kind of, hey, if you choose, do my intro here and here, and then choose if you're going to be a Braille writer, and then it opens up another interactive slide. And so everything that they would need to do to progress through work would be here. I could replicate the structure of the Hyperdoc, and so I could have one panel or one bookshelf be, here's your explore. So here are the links to go and explore. So first explore, and then we're going to apply, and then we're going to do. So I could have that in an interactive classroom. So I don't want you to think that a Hyperdoc and a doc or a slide is the only way. You could do through the Hyperdocs, Hyperslides, you can make interactives. There's so many different ways that you can recreate this experience in a totally online format. It's just whatever you choose to do, or however you think the kids might, it might pull in their interest. So those are just several ideas moving forward of how I might replicate with my students. I hope you have come away with some ideas. I haven't kept up with the chat as much, so so sorry about that. So Gigi, I know we have some time for question and answer. Do you want them to ask in chat, or do you want them to share by unmuting?
Either way, I think there are some questions in the chat that we could probably go through now. And then I think if anyone wants to just chime in, they can unmute themselves as well. I think that will work too.
So Adriana asked, was I able to identify the gaps of technology among the participant students? Are you meaning like students coming in and me thinking they understood how to use like Google Docs or Google Classroom and trying to have to work on getting them caught up? Or are you talking about in a total remote setting, how might that happen for students who don't have access? If you can kind of give me more clarification on that, I can pull that to it. Mindy says that Flipgrid has so many awesome accessibility options. So definitely Flipgrid is a really cool tool if you've never used it. I know we had a few that didn't on that. Yes, so Janet asked, could all of this be done on a Chromebook? Yes, because that's what my students have. Every one of them brought a Chromebook from their classrooms, and that's how we were able to use it. So they could even create their own Screencastify because it's just an extension there. That's where I was kind of going towards the end, is they were going to create kind of like the TED Talk almost of sharing their work with others, because I didn't want it to be just the people that could physically come to our school to understand what a great resource they've created and their passion for it. So I wanted them to create a video. So we could have either done it through Flipgrid or we could have done it through Screencastify. That was gonna kind of be the choice there too. And yes, Helen, all of these tools are online. I am sure that for everything Google has, Microsoft has an example. So you talked about Teams. I think Microsoft has a classroom also. Not 100% sure on that, but I know you've also got OneNote that you could pull in and you could create through there. So just going through here. All right, so I think I got most of the questions. If I didn't, shoot me a note. Let me go ahead and share this link with you so you'll have it, and I'll take out that extra slide that I put in by mistake. I was just brainstorming ideas, so it was like everything. So there is the slides. I'm going to put in my email address and my Twitter handle. And if you are interested in co-creating or getting together, because I have not set anything, any plans to paper yet for this coming up year. So if you'd love to just kind of, let's jump in together to either a Google Meet or a Hangout and or Zoom and just brainstorm ideas and maybe even co-create, because we're all going to be doing a lot of the similar things. So we could create and kind of use the collective wisdom of all of us to create resources and share and to really support one another in this work that we're doing. You need access to see the slides. Okay, let's see.
So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. This should be a very interactive session, so don't feel like you have to type it. You can feel free to unmute and ask away.
If someone wouldn't mind refreshing and double check to make sure those permissions are set right now.
That worked. Thanks, April.
Perfect, perfect. Awesome.
It looks like Adriana followed up with her comment
Okay.
in the chat. So she says she meant it both ways, learning how to use the tools and accessing technology in the remote learning.
I think the way I handled the tools was, if I knew a lot of kids didn't know how to do it, I would have created a video or made sure in my Hyperdocs I had specific directions if they didn't know. But everybody works in a team of 4, and I really pushed for them to support one another. So I saw a lot of students supporting each other in their group. As for access to remote learning, I know I'm in a very fortunate situation that only 6 families in our whole district says that they don't have internet access. And so for us, that wasn't hard for us to support, because We turned on outdoor access, internet access for our families, and they could come up. Our public library has it. We allowed Chromebooks to be checked out, and we're going to continue to do that for this upcoming year. But I know that's not the case everywhere. So I think, you know, if I was working in a location where the students don't have access at home and we can't get face-to-face, it would be a lot more of just brainstorming, you know, writing it, drawing it on paper. There's a lot of low-tech tools you can use, such as the students, you know, calling in, and you can set up Google Voice for free, not on a school email account, but on a private, a personal email account. And so students can call in and leave messages, a voice message of ideas and things like that. So it's much tougher to do it when there's not access available to do that. We do have definitely, we're following strict sanitation. And so when I'm thinking about what tools are essential for us to use, such as the stylus and the slate, which ours are all plastic, I will have a tub that will be clearly labeled, these are sanitized and ready to use, and then a tub labeled used, and they'll know which ones to put their used ones in. But again, I had one common space where all the supplies were stored. So I'm really thinking more so about having that back at their table, so they're not going up and touching, because we don't want, you know, try to keep that 6 feet distance, all of that. So just really trying to think how they can seal up their used materials, and then we can sanitize that before the next one. So Janet, you said our school, that was a big barrier of having that access. Hotspot checkouts, we were able to purchase 6 hotspots for those families. So definitely that is an option. It costs a lot at times, so some school districts have that ability, some don't. We did have a few school cell phones, that we were able to activate a hotspot on that, and then they didn't have cell service, but they had the ability to turn on that hotspot. You're totally fine, Adrian. We all have some background knowledge at times, so good. So Anne asked, how many children with a visual disability actually made use of these games? Unfortunately, with the March shutdown, we were not able to complete these, to finish these completely. They are still sitting in their boxes waiting to be completed at the school. And so that was, our plan was to finish them and put them in, I bought these 12 by 12 plastic storage containers that are kind of almost looks like a pizza box, but it's clear. And that's where all the games were going to go. And they were going to be, we have one main elementary school where our visually impaired students are, and then at our middle school too. And so they were actually going to be put into the library checkout system, so our students and our families could check those out. And then we do interlibrary loans on that. So that's how we were going to get those to be in the use of it.
I'll just answer Neil's question about the recording. So this is being recorded, and we will get it posted up onto our Build a Better Book website. Under the news and events page, there's a section for webinars. So this will get posted up there probably in about a week. And for those of you who were here or missed last week's session with Rachel Brockman, that one is up now on the website. So that one's available for everyone else.
And what made me choose Build a Better Game versus Build a Better Book is when we were pitching the idea of the elective at the middle school. When you do that at middle schools, everybody kind of has a booth and you try to attract children to select your course. I had a family came up and said, thank you so much for y'all doing this. And I said, you know, we're just trying to find things to help. And she said, well, I have a 3rd grader who is visually impaired, and she had a upcoming 6th grader that actually did join our group. I mean, upcoming 7th grader, sorry. But she said, as a family, we appreciate anything you can do for us. She said, and I'll cry because it was so like, oh my gosh, that's why I do this. But she said, last year when her student was in 2nd grade, the year before, 2nd grade, was the first time they had ever been able to play a board game as a family, because the visually impaired teacher had taken the time to make a game accessible. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was not in my thought process until that parent said it. And I was like, we can do this. And so, you know, everybody loves to play a game. And talking to my 4th and 5th graders, I didn't have to to hook them of why we should make something with Braille or tactile. They were like, oh my gosh, yes, everyone should be able to play a game. So that was a natural hook to me and for my students. And knowing what this family, how much they appreciated it, knew that these would be appreciated with those that were created by our students. So that was what really hooked my passion on using games this time. Now we may do something differently another time, but games, I think you can never have enough games. And so that's what we're doing. So thank you so much. It is 1 minute till. I know we've got one more minute. If there's anything else you would love to share, like I said, we're here, and I would love to connect with you and collaborate because together we can do great things. We just sometimes have to push one another and say, have you thought about? And I know Neil pushes me all the time, whether he realizes it or not. We do. We push one another, and it's all for the students. It's all to make learning so much better for everyone involved. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, April. And I'll just put in a plug for our next session, which is July 30th. And we'll actually have Neil McKenzie and Eli Sanchez talking about how they have adapted a lot of technology to their formal and informal learning environments that they are part of for their students who are blind or low vision. So hopefully you can join us on July 30th next. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.